Good morning, ma'am. Welcome.
Good morning, Charu. Good morning, Preeti.
Very good morning, ma'am.
Time to start?
We are waiting for Rajul ma'am to join.
Okay. Then we'll wait for a while then.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir.
गुड मॉर्निंग.
Good morning, Swati.
कैसे हैं स्वाति जी?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
चल रहा है.
Hello.
Rajul, good morning.
Good morning, Harish ji. कैसे
Such
हैं?
a pleasure to see you.
Absolutely.
So, how have you been keeping?
Not too good, but not too bad.
I'm sorry. You should be keeping quite good.
Good morning.
हरीश जी, a very good morning.
Very good. सुधा जी कैसी हैं?
मैं ठीक हूँ, and today is a big day. Looking forward to listening to your formulations and ideas, very much so.
ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, ये सब जो आप लोगों के आइडियाज हैं उनको इकट्ठा करके चेप देते हैं हम.
Hello, Sudha.
Such a pleasure to interact with you also on the Facebook.
Yes, yes. I mean, you keep the flowers blooming in our hearts.
Well, अच्छा लगता है. और आप कैसी हैं?
सब ठीक चल रहा है, ठीक चल रहा है. And now with this opening up, and meeting, I think there is such a
Yeah,
great sense of
things would improve.
improve. Hello, Sudha. Rashmi, good morning. Rajul, good morning. And I can see Charu there. Morning, Charu.
Very good morning, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Morning, ma'am.
Morning, ma'am. Hello, Preeti.
Hello, ma'am. We feel so at the department when we are meeting our teachers.
Shall we
You
start,
need
sir?
a meeting.
Good morning, सीमा जी.
गुड मॉर्निंग सर, नमस्कार.
कैसे हैं?
मैं अच्छी हूँ, आप कैसे हैं सर?
बस चल रहा है.
बहुत पहले मिले थे आपसे जब आप ट्रांसलेशन वर्कशॉप के लिए आए थे ना.
ट्रांसलेशन वर्कशॉप में जब मैं आया था, रिमेम्बर.
उसके बाद तो कोरोना ने दूरियां बढ़ा दी, सब ये
जी.
सारी मीटिंग्स वर्चुअली हो रही हैं.
Let's hope things would,
Yes,
look
now
better now.
certainly things will become normal. बट ये भी अच्छा है सर, वर्चुअल प्लेटफॉर्म पर भी ऐसे मिल के, और वो एक वैसा नहीं लगता, गैप वाली फीलिंग नहीं आती है कि
That's very true. We must be grateful to technology. सोचिए अगर ये ना होती और कोरोना हुआ होता तो क्या हुआ होता.
सब डिप्रेस हो जाते.
पता नहीं डिप्रेस हो जाते या उससे भी आगे कुछ हो जाता, पता नहीं.
हाँ, पता नहीं कुछ.
You never know. You never know. So one should be grateful to these small mercies.
Very true.
Sir, can we start?
आप पूछिए. सब से मैं तो तैयार हूँ. मैं तो जो
आपकी अनुमति चाहिए. राजुल मैम शुरू करें मैम?
Ma'am, we need a moment. We are waiting for Asha ma'am, Vice President LTI, to join in.
Okay.
Just 2 minutes.
Doesn't matter. हम अनौपचारिक वार्तालाप जारी रख सकते हैं. कुछ भी कहिए, कॉलेजेस में जो ये सेमिनार और कॉन्फ्रेंसेस ऑर्गेनाइज करवाने से जितनी एनर्जी आती है ना, वो चाहे वर्चुअल हो या वो ऑफलाइन करवाते थे तब भी इतनी एक्साइटमेंट एंजाइटी रहती थी, और अभी ये वर्चुअल में भी रहता है. तो मुझे लगता है ये तो बहुत मैंडेटरी पार्ट होना ही चाहिए.
देखिए लैंग्वेज कैसे बदलती है. अटेंशन राजुल भार्गव जी. पहले कोई नहीं कहता था जब सेमिनार होते थे कॉलेजेस में, यूनिवर्सिटीज में, कोई नहीं कहता था कि ऑफलाइन सेमिनार है जी. नाउ अनमार्क्ड टर्म इज ऑफलाइन है. पहले सब कहते थे सेमिनार कराना जी, कोई ये भी नहीं कहता था फिजिकल. दिस टर्म वर्चुअल has now become the yardstick for everything else. It is the unmarked term, and offline has come as a marked term.
वर्चुअलिटी को रीडिफाइन कर रहे हैं सब हम.
बिल्कुल. Virtual is the real.
Yes, virtual is the real. पर वो ये जो फिजिकल या ऑफलाइन होता उसके कुछ चार्म अलग होते थे कि भाई जो पोस्ट सेमिनार या पोस्ट सेशंस जो एक तरीके का डिस्कशन वगैरह होता था वो मिस करते हैं अभी इस वाले
आस्क मी कितनी बढ़िया चाय और गपशप मैंने
वो तो कहीं सर
की है पिछले 35-40 साल में, उसका कोई हिसाब ही नहीं है. And the other thing, you are all very senior teachers, and you know that eye contact, physical eye contact,
it matters a lot,
which cannot be replaced by the screen eye contact, to be honest.
Sir, when we take classes also, we just assume that students are listening to us, they are concentrating, but still that thing is missing. कि भाई कोई पूछ रहा है उसको देख के हाँ समझ में आया, अब किसको देख के कहें समझ में आया, हम मान लेते हैं समझ में आया.
देखिए बात यह है, the unfortunate truth is both teachers and students have become half serious in this virtual reality.
Yes.
But that's the sad part. उसका नतीजा है, देखिए when universities and colleges are now going physical, तो और इम्तिहान होने वाले हैं, there is a movement by students कि physical इम्तिहान नहीं देंगे जी हमको बस वो टिक करा लीजिए, multiple choice questions, let's just tick. Look at that.
सर हमारे मेंटोरिंग ग्रुप के व्हाट्सएप बने हुए हैं, ग्रुप्स बने हुए हैं, हर टीचर के में स्टूडेंट यही पूछ रहे हैं. लास्ट ईयर क्या हुआ था, 1 घंटे मतलब पेपर कम हो गया था, 1.5 घंटे का 3 घंटे की बजाय उनको कम क्वेश्चन करने थे, तो वो यही पूछ रहे हैं कि इस साल क्या पूरे 5 क्वेश्चन करने पड़ेंगे. ये मेरे नहीं है, सब टीचर से बच्चे ग्रुप में, मेंटोरिंग ग्रुप में यही पूछ रहे हैं. तो हम उनको कह रहे हैं कि अब नॉर्मल है, 3 घंटे का एग्जाम देना है, प्रिपेयर लाइक दिस, आपको 5 क्वेश्चन ही करने पड़ेंगे. बस
यही है, देश का कितना नुकसान हुआ है, नॉलेज का कितना नुकसान हुआ है, नॉलेज डिस्पेंसेशन का कितना नुकसान हुआ है, इसका कोई हिसाब ही नहीं है.
शुरू करवा.
हाँ जी मैम.
Call her up to join.
And that's okay. She'll join in while we'll begin.
Yeah, please.
As Nikolai Gogol, Russian novelist, has rightly quoted, I quote, "What a strange creature man is. He does not believe in God, but he does believe that if the bridge of his nose itches, he is surely going to die. He disdains to read the creation of a poet as clear as day and imbued with harmony and the lofty wisdom of simplicity. Yet he pounces eagerly on a book in which some know all has churned everything up, spun a lot of nonsense, bent and twisted nature inside out. He thinks this book is marvelous, and he shouts from the rooftops, 'This is it. These are the true facts of the mysteries of the heart.' Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I unquote. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I, Preeti Sharma from the Department of English, Keynote College, feel immensely honored and delighted to announce the unveiling of 2-day international seminar on post-truth, actual versus alternate reality, organized by the Department of English, Kanoria PG Mahila Vidyalaya, Jaipur, in collaboration with English Language Teachers Association of India, Rajasthan chapter. I feel highly privileged to have the pleasant task of welcoming all of you to the inaugural ceremony of the same. We are elated with joy to have with us our keynote speaker for the occasion, Professor Harish Narang, Professor and Chairperson at Center for English Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Advisor of this seminar and our torchbearer, Madam Professor Rajul Bhargav, former Head, Department of English, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. Welcome, sir and ma'am. I extend a warm welcome to Professor Joy Chakravarti, Advisor of the seminar, former Head, Department of English, University of Rajasthan. Professor Sudha Rai, former Head, Department of English, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. Sir Professor Suresh Kumar Agarwal, Head, Department of English, Maharaja Ganga Singh University, Bikaner. Sir Dr. Sanjay Arora, National President, LTI, and Associate Professor, Central University of Rajasthan. Madam Dr. S. Asha, Vice President, LTI, Rajasthan Chapter. Let me take the distinct privilege of acknowledging the presence of Chief Patron of the seminar and our source of inspiration, Honorable Madam Dr. Ashmi Chaturvedi, Director, Kanoria College, Patron of the seminar and our mentor, Principal Madam Dr. Seema Agarwal, I also welcome Vice Principal Science, Madam Dr. Ratna Saxena, Vice Principal Commerce, Madam Dr. Sarla Sharma, Vice Principal Arts, Madam Dr. Deeptima Shukla, Dean College Development, Madam Dr. Anjula Jain, and all the faculty members, participants, and dear students. For the auspicious start of the event, let us now fold our hands to invoke Goddess Saraswati, and hence I invite all our revered guests and participants to join the virtual lamp lighting and mark the onset of this two-day international seminar titled Post-Truth, Actual versus Alternate Reality. Visible again? Visible? I request to please mute yourself, everybody. Thank you, everyone. We at Kanoria PG Mahila Vidyalaya are committed towards empowering our youth with quality education. We envision a future where education and knowledge are the way factors in our nation's progress. Hence, we strive not only to train them from academic front, but also from extracurricular vision. Kanoria College was established in 1965 by late Bhagiraji Kanoria with an aim to develop a passion for learning among young women of Jaipur. The college exists in the aesthetic environs of Jawaharlal Nehru Marg as a first institution of higher education for women through grant and aid from Government of Rajasthan. Moving forward in its 57 years of luminous journey, the college has emerged as one of the leading institutions not only in Jaipur but also in the state of Rajasthan. With a view to impart education, the college aims at disseminating not only knowledge and facts but also emphasizes on value-based holistic development. Earning a prestigious reputation of harnessing a progressive outlook towards education, the college has introduced new courses at UG and PG levels from time to time, along with skill development and career-oriented courses. The college perceives education as a means of developing one's greatest abilities because in each person there is a private hope and dream, which fulfilled can be transformed into benefit for everyone and greater strength for the nation. Keeping this in view, college offers courses in arts, science, commerce, fine arts, computers, biotechnology, business administration, fashion designing, media, and entertainment. The infrastructure and facilities available on the campus are amongst the best. It is wholly self-contained campus comprising of everything that student on campus would ever require. The spirit of learning depends on the atmosphere built up around the campus, the zeal carried by the teachers and imparted through facilities. College treasures that education is passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Therefore, institution has exceptional brigade of alumni who represent the legacy of knowledge and values gained from their journey as college student. Today, once again, keeping up the legacy of setting the benchmark, Kanoria College feels pride in organizing this two-day international seminar on post-truth, actual versus alternate reality. Nobody cares if you cannot do well. Just get up and do. Great workers are not great because of the technique. They are great because of their passion. And I'm delighted to mention the person bestowed with this passion, our mentor and support, principal of the college, Madam Dr. Seema Agarwal. May I request Madam for the welcome address.
Thank you, Preeti. Namaskar. First of all, I bid a very warm welcome to to all the speakers and participants who took out their valuable time and joined us today on this virtual platform to be part of this two-day international seminar on the topic Post-Truth, Actual versus Alternative Reality. We are fortunate enough to get collaboration from English Language Teachers Association of India, Altai, Rajasthan chapter. We are privileged to have among us Professor Harish Narang, who is not only a learned academician, but is also a mentor to innumerable students. We are grateful to him for accepting our invitation and becoming the keynote speaker of this inaugural session of this international seminar. Post-truth is a complex term, and a mere contemplation on fact-checking and truth aren't an antidote to it. What we need at the onset of the seminar is for insight from a learned perspective, and no persona should have justified it better than Professor Narang. I welcome you, Professor Narang, and thank you so much for joining us today and bestowing us with your presence. Welcome, sir. I wholeheartedly welcome Professor Rajul Bhargav, an academician known for developing linguistic, literary, and artistic concepts that provide students with practical experiences and knowledge from the perspective of comprehensive approach. Welcome, ma'am. Now I would like to welcome our very own and dear to my heart, Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi, a renowned academician, administrator, and a source of inspiration to all of us. She has been instrumental in organizing this international seminar. The idea and outline of this seminar is penned down under her guidance. So, in this session, I formally welcome Chief Patron of this seminar. Welcome, ma'am. I would also like to welcome Dr. Sanjay Arora, National President Altai, for the unconditional support at all levels. A warm welcome to all the advisors of this seminar, Professor Sudha Roy, Professor Sudhir Rajiv, Professor Suresh Agrawal, Professor Joya Chakravarti, Professor K.K. Gautam. So, without the guidance of all of you, it would not be smooth path for us to conduct this kind of international seminar. What I think that post-truth is basically a political idea. We are now living in the post-truth era. Truly, it is a truly post-truth era of marketing. Everything is glorified by data presentation, and we often look at data and interpret it to support our own beliefs. Feelings have become more important than facts. The way by which the communication is done depends upon the purpose of communication. The era of post-truth is based on emotions, opinions, and distorted facts. False advertising tactics are hitting the emotions and sentiments of public at large. This was what I feel about this post-truth era. We are sure that after this session, when we will hear the renowned academician about this topic, we would get a better understanding of post-truth and know whether or not reality is actual or alternative. So my best wishes to all the participants, and I congratulate Department of English for organizing this kind of international seminar. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, ma'am. A dream doesn't become reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work. And I feel very proud in saying that Kanoria PG Mahila Mahavidyalaya is an epitome, duly justifying this saying. For any organization, it is indeed gratifying in counting feathers added to its hat at every endeavor, and undoubtedly, it is a matter of great honor for the Department of English to be a part of this tradition. Hence, I request the organizing secretary of the seminar, Madam Dr. Charu Goyal, also head Department of English, Kanoria College, to please do the honors of presenting the seminar overview.
Thank you, Preeti. Oxford Dictionary chose the term post-truth as word of the year for 2016, affirming that it is used to refer to circumstances where objective facts have less influence over public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal beliefs. Post-truth is not a phenomena. What we call post-truth, what we call post-truth today was called propaganda. In other words, alternative realities are not based on facts but on emotions. Alternative realities based on perceptions and not on data. Post-truth seems to have been first used in this meaning in a 1992 essay by late Serbian-American writer Steve Tisch in the National magazine, in which he lamented that we, as free people, have freely decided that we want to live in some post-truth world. The political and social panorama will be marked by this truth climate, post-truth climate, where objectivity and rationality give way to emotions or to a willingness to uphold beliefs even though the facts show otherwise. Post-truth is not synonymous with lying. However, it describes a situation where, when creating or manipulating public opinion, the objective facts have less influence than emotions and personal beliefs. We live in an era when people have less patience for facts, data, and truth. This era, when emotions and statements that feel like truth are not but based on reality, prevail over what is objective and real, is an enormous challenge. The concept of truth in philosophy goes back to Plato, who warned of the dangers of false claim of knowledge. The greater threat comes from those who have heard us to think that they already know the truth. Is it important at this point to give at least a minimal definition of truth? Perhaps the most famous is that of Aristotle, who said, "To say of what is that it is not, or of what it is not that it is false, while to say of what is that it is and of what is not that it is not is true." Naturally, philosophers have fought for centuries over whether this sort of correspondence view is correct, whereby we judge the truth of a statement only by how well it fits reality. In post-truth era, characterized by lies, propaganda, and fake news, many have raised the issue of the meaning in the literature, and it is the task of the interpreter to find the meaning and the truth in any literary text. So, is post-truth just about lying then? Is it mere political spin? Not precisely. It is an expression of concern by those who care about the concept of truth and feel that it is under attack. But what about those who feel that they are merely trying to tell the other side of the story on controversial topics? That there really is a case to be made for alternative facts. The idea of a single objective truth has never been free from controversy. Is admitting this necessarily conservative or liberal, or perhaps it is a fusion? These are the questions that we will discuss and try to answer in the two-day seminar on the various themes as post-truth and postmodern era, post-humanism, migration, displacement and refugee, misconceptions of emotional reality in literature, new media and democracy, and hope to have fruitful outcomes and better understanding of the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I guess it's not required to be too formal. Thank you, Charudi. So, great leaders are almost always great simplifiers who can cut through argument, debate, and doubt to offer a solution everybody can understand. And we are pleased and blessed to have one such persona guiding us throughout. I'm pleased to invite our torchbearer, our guiding force, Honorable Madam Dr. Rashmi Chaturvedi, Director, Kanoria College, Jaipur, for her opening remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Preeti. And thank you, Charu, for elaborating on the subject. You spoke history and other deliberations of other viewpoints of post-truth. So I think this has set the ball rolling. And for me, there is very little to say other than welcoming Professor Narang, who is there to guide us as to whether this subject is worth or not, and also what exactly are we heading with in this post-truth era when the agenda is more political than actually either literary or social or cultural. And the political agenda is the kind of overpowering all other disciplines, literary discipline and cultural and social. So the fact remains this, and the word post-truth is a new entry in the dictionary. It came in 2016 in the dictionary, and when it came, we are a little intrigued why this was required at all. Because we already had too many posts leading us to a theory mess, leading us to a chaotic situation where it is difficult to find a headway as to how to understand the present scene, how to understand the present situation. So we had postmodernism. We had so many other posts like post-feminism, post-structuralism, post-colonialism. So many things, so many other words have been coined and have been added to the dictionary, and not just added, they have become regular theories. Post-truth that way, I think, still has time to become a regular theory. And although it has always existed, we know that ever since when we go to Indian philosophy, uh, right from the beginning of Vedic literature, where Maya is enumerated, and we know that Maya is perception. And perception would depend, it lies in the eyes of beholder. So perceptions would vary, and the interpretations of that perception would also vary. So it has always existed, but why there was a need to add this to as a new term in dictionary? Because when we talk of postmodern, this was a breakaway from what was modernism. Modernism, in my view, was a monolith where white Western male was the referral point from where you assessed things, from where you understood how the world is, and the time lag that has been created is because of the presence of a white Western male and its gaze. Because we were called underdeveloped in comparison to the developed countries because of this time lag. Because if we started out 50 years uh, after some countries, so we would take at least 50 years to reach there where they are already. This time lag would always exist. And in postmodernism, the breakaway was from that from that modernism, and various sections of society and various sections of cultures thought that we have our own referral point, we would have our own context, and we would understand things from our referral point and from our context. So postmodern, like I'll give you one example, that is of course of feminism. When Uncle Tom's Cabin, this was published in 1850s somewhere, and this was never counted as a literary canon. Why? Because it was written by a woman, the protagonist was a black, and the critics thought that it is too sentimental. So this was never counted as a literary canon. But when feminism came into existence and when women started to perceive their own problems and to define and revisit their positions and redefine their roles, things became different. And when this was read as a literary piece, so this became, this fitted in the concept of postmodernism. When we have our own viewpoints, we have our own axioms, when we decide and define things in our own ways. Uh, but this is a social and cultural and literary concept. So, Uncle Tom's Cabin became, now for us, for the feminists, it became a literary canon. It became a literature, it became a point on the basis of which the other works can be judged. Now, the question is, when all this existed, when feminism and colonialism and postmodernism, when all these terms were there, why post-truth came into existence? As far as I understand this, and as has been said earlier also, this came as a political agenda, and the political agenda was the statement of power. So from the viewpoint of power, from the viewpoint of government, there came a truth to public eye where you have to understand things from the people in power. What you have to see what they tried to show you. And the facts became blurred. Because there were various views even on political program, on political field, but what we have to understand is that we can follow our own beliefs. Even in that, we can follow our own beliefs, so we can be detractors of what the government is saying, we can be resistant to what is being shown to us, but the post-truth remains when the facts are blurred, when the facts are viewed from a political point of view. This is what had happened in America under the Trump government. This is, I'm sorry to say, but this is happening in our own country now, where you have to see things from a different lens, not the lens of constitution, but the lens of a political agenda. So I think the rest I leave to Professor Narang to enumerate and to tell us more about this, because for me, the political agenda is, and this political agenda, sorry to say, but this has appropriated social, cultural disciplines also. And everything is viewed as a political thing, and even religion, culture, everything is viewed from a political point of view rather than from where it actually existed, from where it actually emanated, and from where it actually should exist. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I think the rest, Professor Narang and Professor Raju Bhargav would be able to elaborate and tell you more about this, what post-truth actually is. Thank you.
Thank you for your factual insights, ma'am. It's always a pleasure to hear you. It's a matter of great honor and pride for us to have such a vivacious persona in extraordinary league of intellectuals of the country, and moreover, an idol himself for every youth and generations to come. Our keynote speaker for today, Sir Professor Harish Narang. Sir is a writer, critic, translator, and education consultant who was a professor and chairman at the Center for English Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He was also a visiting professor at Ambedkar University of Delhi and a consultant to the Sixth Pay Commission for Teachers. His areas of special interest include African writings in English, Dalit literature, women writings, diasporic studies, and literary translation. He taught courses and guided research in these areas. Author of over 20 books, his prominent publications include Politics as Fiction, Mightier Than Machete, Writing Dalit, Writing Black, Manto My Love, Katil Ka Geet, and Is Sadi Ki Prem Kahani. He has published two collections of stories in Hindi, namely Pakistani Bacha and Sunte The Seher Hogi. He was recipient of British and Canadian fellowships. He loves gardening and photography, and I would just read what Sir has written. Is an argumentative Indian, as he says for himself. We are indeed grateful to you, sir, for making the occasion highly prestigious by gracing it with your benevolent presence. Now, without any delay, may I request sir to kindly enlighten us with his eloquent address titled as Maharana Pratap and not Akbar won the Battle of Haldi Ghati. Literature, politics, and commitment in times of post-truth. Over to you, sir. So I request you to unmute.
I must apologize. I had myself. Thank you very much. You know, you are very generous, Preeti, in saying all that you did, and also Rashmi ji and Seema ji, you are all very generous. I really want to thank Seema Agarwal, Principal Kanodia PG Mahila Mahavidyalaya, the Department of English, my colleagues Charu ji, Preeti ji, Swati ji, and I am really feeling honored that so many of my senior colleagues with whom I have interacted for nearly half a century are here to listen to or interact with me, whatever I have to say. Rajul ji is here, Sudha ji is here, Rashmi ji is here, Jaya ji, Suresh ji, and K.K. Gautam, I understand, is here. Well, I'm really feeling honored about this. As Preeti has already announced, the title of my presentation this afternoon or this morning is Maharana Pratap and not Akbar won the Battle of Haldi Ghati. But my subtitle says what I am actually going to talk about: literature, politics, and commitment in the age of post-truth. Thus, you can see that this presentation of mine is actually about creative writing and its relationship, if at all. I say if at all because there are some people who believe that no such relationship exists, with socio-political reality around us, and the commitment, again, if any, because some people deny it, on the part of a writer. And all this I am going to talk in the context of post-truth, which Charuji defined and Rashmiji elaborated on, and which is touted to be summing up our whole existence today in a way. Therefore, in my presentation, what I'm going to do is to talk about the crucial questions, which I will raise and discuss, basic questions, because whenever we are in a situation like we are in today, the best thing is to return to the very basics. So I am going to talk about, as per me, what is the nature of literature and what is its relationship with politics. Also, if there is any relationship between, as I said, between literature and commitment. If such be the relationship, then a host of few other questions arise, namely, whom is a writer committed to? Under what circumstances such commitment is made or required or expected? And finally, what are the objectives of such commitment? And then, of course, the mother of all questions that I consider, why are writers committed at all? There could be some more questions relating to it, but let me stop the business of raising questions. We may call them in one phrase, these are the what, how, and why questions of creative writing. And as I said, I will use post-truth as a kind of screensaver, as we have on screens these days on our presentations, virtual presentations. Let me actually begin by dilating on this concept of post-truth, although it has already been spoken about, but I think my take might be slightly different. So the first thing about post-truth. And then, as I said, I'll relate it to literature, creativity, commitment, etc., etc. Language. Every language has multiple functions, we all know, assigned by a community, the speakers of that language, and the functions are to subserve various needs of that community. And the primary function, as we all know, is to communicate, to facilitate communication among various speakers of that language community, linguistic community. But interestingly, and I'm sure you're aware of it, another function of language is just the opposite. The primary function, I said, is facilitating communication, and the other function is to obfuscate communication, to try and stop smooth communication. Let me give you an example. Look at the language of literature. It is so esoteric that for common people to understand the language of religion is at times very difficult. So what do? People then employ certain middlemen, certain interpreters. And in various religions, we know such interpreters are either a priest or a pandit or a pai or a mullah or a rabbi, whatever. These are the people who are employed to interpret religious texts for us. Because such texts, as I said, are presented in a language which at times people find difficult to decipher. But another problem arises the moment you have a middleman or middlemen. At times they differ about the interpretation of religious discourse so much, and at times they differ from one another so violently that instead of uniting the community, which should be the primary function of language, they seem to be dividing the community. Look around. The Vaishnavites, the Shaivites, the Sunni, the Shias. Look at the Anglo-Saxons. Anglican Church or Roman Catholics and so on. All these are primarily because of the fact that these middlemen differ from one another in interpretations of religious language. Let me give you another example. Look at the language of law, which, to borrow a phrase from Tennyson, and I'm very fond of that phrase, the language of law half reveals and half conceals the soul within. And as we know, the language of law also needs interpretation. And this interpretation is by very erudite legally luminaries, judges, advocates, lawyers, etc., etc. And mind you, in this case, the interpretation of a single sentence or a phrase can make a very major difference. In fact, difference between life and death, literally. So, this function to hide rather than reveal, to facilitate communication, to obstruct communication rather than facilitate, is not some accident of history. It is not by chance that such a function has come about. It is in fact deliberate. And why is it deliberately built into discourses of various languages? Because, as Rashmi ji pointed out, this is because of power, devolution of power. Let me give you an example. let me cite an instance which some of you may recall happened in Calcutta, now Kolkata, a few years ago, where one of the major religious leaders of Hinduism was presiding over a public function. And in the beginning, a woman came and started Vedic mantrochar. She started reading certain mantras from the Vedas. And the big religious functionary immediately stopped her. He says, this is not allowed in our religion. Women cannot read and recite scriptures. You see, the idea was what? The idea was to deprive a very major section of humanity, almost 50%, maybe even more, from access to religious knowledge. Because if they empower themselves through scriptures and real religious knowledge, they might start questioning some of the assumptions that these religious fellows had made. The same is true of other religions also, Islam or Sikhism or others. There could be examples. So what we see is that these middlemen in course of time have developed what we call as vested interests. If there is a material pie, if there is a money involved, they naturally don't want that material pie to be distributed among others. It's only of late, thanks to the feminist movement even in India and so on, Rashmiji spoke about it, that women have now started claiming their legitimate place in priesthood. We now have women priests and so on. Even in Islam, they are now talking of women leading prayers, etc., etc. So we see in certain registers of language. I gave you two examples. I gave you the example of religion, and I gave you the example of the language of law. There is this definite attempt to hide things in the rigmarole of language. But this may not necessarily be confined to only technical languages, technical register. Even in the day-to-day language of common parlance, we sometimes obfuscate. We sometimes try to hide the truth. I'll give you a couple of very interesting examples. Look at the example to go to the restroom. A very common expression in English these days. We don't go to the restroom to rest. We all know there. Because we go there to answer the call of nature. To answer the call of nature. Incidentally, that itself is obfuscating or hiding the real function, which, as we know, might be, among others, going for urinating. It is considered impolite to make a reference to that activity in our conversation. So we try and find, phrases or language or parts of discourse in which we do not really mention what is expected to be communicated. In fact, give me an aside for half a second and I might bring smiles to your faces. Let me give you a very interesting example of how in India we have further hidden the truth of visiting the loo. I'm sure you have heard this, and when I heard this first time about 35 years ago, I could not help smiling. I was traveling in a train and there was a family with a little baby, a child, I would say, of a couple of years, who was sitting next to me. And suddenly the woman said to the husband, "Bacche ko bathroom aaya hai. Bacche ko bathroom aaya hai." That is a further hiding of the truth, because it is impolite to say that he needs to go and urinate. and so on. Similarly, look at the expression to make love, which, as we know, refers to the sexual act. But we do not want to make a reference to it again in polite conversation. So we say to make love. But there is a difference between the religious discourse and the discourse of common parlance, of which I have given you a couple of examples. In this case, the intention is not to hoodwink or to cheat, which might be the reason behind religious discourse or legal discourse. As you all know, we have a very interesting nomenclature for such expressions. We call them euphemisms. The most sinister example before the age of post-truth, which was, in a way, the expression was perhaps the predecessor of generalization under post-truth, happened in 1986 when a very senior British bureaucrat, deposing before a committee, used the phrase saying that he was being economical on truth. Being economical on truth, an expression which the Americans picked up very quickly and used so frequently. If you try to find out the meaning of being economical on truth, if you go to Google or Wikipedia or certain other things, it will say not to reveal the whole truth. Don't be taken in by this. This expression actually means nothing but telling lies, plain and simple. And the intention here is very clear in public discourse, in political discourse, to hide, to gain an unfair advantage, whether it is social or political, and by political I mean devolution of power. Post-truth belongs to the same category of euphemisms that are actually created to hide telling the truth. But look at the guys who create such terms. How clever are the fellows. In the expression post-truth, the insertion of the term truth in it tends to give an impression that it is something relating to truth. Well, it is in a way related to truth, but not to tell the truth, just the opposite. And post, as we know, is a term that we use. Rashmiji told us about post-colonialism and postmodernism, where the prefix post, an interesting oxymoron, no? Prefix post refers to going beyond or going after. So put the two together. Post-truth, going beyond truth. And what is going beyond truth? सच के आगे क्या है? सच के आगे तो जनाब सिर्फ झूठ है. That is what post-truth is all about. Post-truth is generally defined as, I'm quoting, relating to or existing in an environment in which facts are viewed as irrelevant. Facts are viewed as irrelevant or less important than personal beliefs and opinions, and emotional appeals are used to influence public opinion. Facts are viewed as irrelevant. When do facts become irrelevant or less important? When we don't want to confront them. And once again, when we try and tell lies. This is a very rigmarole of a definition, which could have been, in my opinion, used to be summed up in just one word. Post-truth, like being economical on truth, is nothing but lies. Simple and straight. People have written books on it. Well, they will never use this term. They will use all kinds of, terms, what in Hindi we call as jalebi banana. Go round and round and round. And they will also talk about post-truth as an in-between category. Interesting. In between. On one side is truth, on the other side is falsehood. Try and kindly explain what is in between false and truth. There is nothing. There is emptiness. There is nothing that exists there. So to my mind, post-truth is a term par excellence to tell and spread lies, and they are what I call, borrowing a term from the title of a book, I call them words in sheep's clothing. Words in sheep's clothing. In fact, there was an Italian writer, Mario Pai, who wrote a book with that title, Words in Sheep's Clothing. And post-truth is nothing but that. Let me now give you some examples of post-truth, because I have talked about it in a very dry manner, definitional manner. Some of the recent examples of post-truth from public discourse. For more than 1 year, and Rashmiji referred to Donald Trump, Donald Trump has been using a phrase that the election has been stolen from him. Stolen election. How do you steal an election? I don't understand that. To utter a post-truth, the whole of judiciary, public discourse, and so on, for 1.5 years has been hijacked, and it has divided the American society as never before, in my opinion. When Putin has shown aggression through his intervention in Ukraine a couple of days ago, a survey said only 25% Americans are feeling outraged at this. The others are not bothered, because they are more bothered about stolen election than anything else. Let me give you an example nearer home. When in April-May 2020, China crossed the LCA, LAC, line of actual control in eastern Ladakh, and occupied certain areas, which it still continues to be. Pillar 4 to 8 and part of Galwan Valley and part of that lake. Our Honorable Prime Minister made a statement, "Na koi ghusa hai, na koi ghus paega." He still holds on to that. The whole world knows. There are thousands of satellites in the world which show you, even to use a literal meaning for, even a needle in the haystack can be found. And he says, "Na koi ghusa hai, na koi ghus paega." This is a very interesting, typical post-truth statement. In fact, in the last few years, Rashmiji also referred to this, our political discourse has degenerated and abounded in post-truths. Give you a latest example. There is still election going on in Uttar Pradesh. A couple of weeks ago, our Honorable Home Minister, Amit Shah ji, was speaking in Uttar Pradesh, Western Uttar Pradesh, where the first phase of election was to take place. And he made a very interesting observation. He said, for 650 years, BJP and the Jats have been fighting the Mughals. 650 years, you heard it right. BJP was founded in 1980. Even the mother organization, RSS, was founded in 1925. This is a typical post-truth statement. During the pandemic, second phase particularly, unfortunately, tens of thousands of people were killed because of lack of oxygen. People were dying on the streets. People were crying for getting even a cylinder at home because there were no beds with oxygen in hospitals left. India made a global appeal. There were oxygen express trains running in the country. There were flights bringing in nothing but donations of liquid oxygen from all over the world. And yet our Honorable Health Minister in the Parliament said, in this country, no one died for lack of oxygen. This is the public discourse of post-truths. I could go on. In fact, our political discourse provides us with so many examples, but let me conclude this discussion by saying that this is the real nature of post-truth, and as Rashmiji said, this has now occupied the major space in our public discourse. Let me now move on to the second part and speak about literary writing, commitment of writers, and their societal responsibilities in such times of post-truth. I want to clarify something here. I want to say that it is not that lies were not told before the age of post-truth. Lies were told even earlier, but the only thing was they were told with a sense of apology, with a fond hope that even if people find out, they will be kind enough to overlook it. And it has become more dangerous, telling lies, being in the age of post-truth, because of the social media, preponderance of social media, which is now reaching every home, every person on the street through phones and televisions and other gadgets. And this has emboldened the tellers of lies because they can propagate them in no time. And then it is a one-way discourse. You can tell lies on a television and get away with it. Tell a lie on a documentary film and get away with it. Shall I give you another interesting example? Speaking about, once again in the context of election, our Honorable Prime Minister made a statement a few weeks ago that he was speaking, I think, on the birth anniversary of Guru Gorakhnath, of whose Mathadish is our Honorable Yogi Ji. He said Guru Gorakhnath and Sant Kabir and Guru Nanak used to sit together and exchange religious views. Guru Gorakhnath was born in the 10th century. Sant Kabir, as you know, in 14th century, and Guru Nanak much later. But he got away with it. Excellent example of post-truth. Excellent example of post-truth. Let me, as I said, now talk about the second part. I want to draw your attention to what happened a few years ago after, this age of post-truth had started revealing its ugly face in public discourse and had its very dangerous consequences of certain people being killed. At that point of time, writers from India felt outraged by not just post-truth, but its very dangerous, violent consequences. And they decided that whatever public honor or awards they had received, they must try and return it. So people from Ashok Vajpayee to Nayantara Sehgal and everyone else in between started returning publicly the awards whenever they had got from whichever government they had said. They said this was their way of protesting that people from, particularly from the non-majority communities, were being targeted and at times victims of killings. Not only them, even people who call themselves rationalists, who believe in reason and logic, were also being targeted. If I can recall for you the name of that fellow, poor fellow, Akhlaq, who lived in Dadri in Uttar Pradesh, in whose refrigerator they said they found the vigilantes, cow vigilantes said they found beef and killed him. Later on, it was proved through labs that this was not beef at all. Similarly, a fellow called Najib from Palwal, a fellow called Paluddin from Alwar, and even a Hindu, an ASI, an assistant sub-inspector, a Hindu from Bulandshahr, were victims of such vigilantes. This is what outraged the writing fraternity. More than that, a little earlier, renowned Kannada writer, you remember Kulbargi, was killed. A little before that, in Maharashtra, Pansare and Dabolkar were killed. But the last straw on the writer's conscience came when Gauri Lankesh from Karnataka was murdered in cold blood. She was a journalist, she was a writer. So this is what, in a way, you see, outraged the writers' fraternity. And this, as I shall elaborate, will be the duty of writers in such. You'll forgive me for a second. Suman, I'm busy. What really outraged them were concepts like love jihad or ghar wapsi, through which, not only Muslims, but Christians and Dalits and everybody else who did not belong to the majority community, or even those from the majority community who did not see eye to eye with such people, were made targets. In fact, I was witness to one such event, one such happening. A few years ago, I was in a seminar in a university in Rajasthan, where a very renowned woman scholar from an international repute was not allowed to speak because she was challenging the post-truth historical facts which were being dispersed in the public discourse. This has particularly happened, as you know, since 2014. So this debate that started in the country by returning of these awards by writers became ugly when naturally they were called anti-nationals. Some of the great names, they were called anti-nationals and all other names. Not only that, overnight, a mushrooming of good Samaritans sprung everywhere who started giving unsolicited advice to writers saying, please keep away from politics. Politics is a very dirty thing. Writers should be politically neutral and so on. And therefore, my presentation is about these crucial questions: commitment, creative writing, and so on. Let me come to the point of literature. As I said, I will talk about the nature of literature. Literature is an expression which may be real or imaginary, where by an experience based on events or just imagined, a writer creates a whole discourse. And this is what is an essential part of what we call as creative writing. As I said, this may be real, this may be imaginary, this may be a hybrid of both, partly imaginary, partly real. You know, take an example of partition. The partition was a very major tragic public event that happened in this country, and it led to a large number of fictional discourses: Tamas, Train to Pakistan, Aag Ka Darya, Zindagi Nama, Jhoota Sach, and Azadi. So, literature is based on facts or imaginary facts. This is true of all literature everywhere. Even when writers talk of scientific fiction, science fiction, the basis behind that is always factual, socio-political circumstances. You know, what I'm trying to say is the writers always try and draw their sustenance from socio-political circumstances around them, whether they write poems or plays or stories or longer discourses and so on. So what I want to say is that literature is a discourse, real or imaginary or hybrid, that is created for consumption by readers. That is its relationship with socio-political reality around. At this time, let me try and clarify. I've used the term politics in my title. Let me try and clarify a little. By politics, I don't mean the politics of a particular political party, Congress, BJP, SP, BSP, whatever alphabet we use. By politics, I mean a device that the society invents or makes, through which it devolves power among various sections of the society. Politics is a device through which various sections of the society are given certain percentage of the power, if you want to put it very, very clearly. So it is about distribution of power. That is what politics is all about. And who are the people who do this? People who have been entrusted with the responsibility of governing a society, democratic or autocratic or theocratic or whatever. People who have this responsibility have the responsibility of devolving or dividing this power. And this is what may be their worldview. They will do it according to what they think, or this may be their ideological stance, the ideological stance of politics. Commitment. Let me briefly talk about commitment. Commitment, as I said, is related to this politics, this public stance. Commitment is when somebody voluntarily or as per the accepted law promises something. I commit, I promise, I propose to do it, etc., are all related expressions. What does literature stand for? Literature stands for the development or evolution of a society at a given point of time. If you look at the literature of a particular period, it can be a wonderful indication of what society, what kind of society that has been. Look at when you read Mahabharata or when you read Ramayana, you get a fairly good idea about the kind of societies that existed during the times of Mahabharata or Ramayana. That is why from time to time, we are talking in terms of bringing in Ram Rajya. Hum Ram Rajya लाएंगे, because there was an organization, a socio-political organization that existed, which is considered ideal. So people from time to time try and, evolve, try and create that kind of society. What I'm trying to say is that literature is very closely aligned to socio-political reality and reflects the development of that society. Therefore, it is a product of the society. It is a reflection of the society. These are cliches that we use. It reflects the human sensibility of those times. But there are some people who would say writing has nothing to do to be a deliberate activity showing those realities. They say writing is instinctive. सोशियल रियलिटी से इसका कोई मतलब नहीं है जी, हमको तो जो मन में आता है हम लिख देते हैं. This is nothing but nonsense. I once met a candidate for a professorship in a university in Rajasthan many years ago. I will not name him. He once told us that the committee that he got poetry, he got poems, and those poems appeared in his dream completely well formulated, including a run-on line or comma, full stop. When he woke up, he just wrote them. We could only smile. Writing, friends, to me, is a very coolly calculated, deliberate activity. Because writers always feel they have something to communicate. They have something to convey. And this, as I said, goes contrary to many people who believe कि मैं तो सोचता ही नहीं हूँ, मैं तो लिख देता हूँ. There are people who say, I don't write the story, but the story writes me. These are very interesting phrases, but nonsense, mean nothing. In fact, if you allow me to say, I want to shock you. Writing, creative writing, is as deliberate and as coolly calculated as a murder. It is planned as a murder. What does a murderer do? A murderer chooses a victim, chooses the weapons, chooses the manner in which he would execute, he or she will execute the task. So do writers. What are the victims of writers? Readers. What are the weapons? Words, phrases, metaphors, similes, juxtapositions. These are all the weapons through which. And as a murderer has an objective, so has a writer. The objective is to persuade the readers to a certain point of view. That is the objective. So a creative piece of writing has three components. Someone is writing for someone to communicate something. This is true of all pieces of writing at any given point of time, anywhere. Therefore, what is a piece of literature? It is a social document. But more than social document, it is a societal document. What is the difference between social and societal? Societal document is one in which the entire society participates. Social document is very clear. I have given you the example. If you read Iliad or if you read Mahabharata or Ramayana or any of the big classics, you will always know about that society and so on. In fact, you possibly recall, you are students of English literature, if you are, you possibly recall the tribute that Karl Marx paid to the 19th century British novelists. He said from the 19th century British novelists, a reader could learn more about the social, political, economic, and cultural state of Britain of 19th century than from social scientists. This is what also his friend and collaborator Balzac said about the French society. Engels said about Balzac, Balzac's writings about French society. So, and this is why in social sciences these days, you always have, literary insights now into social sciences. And this is precisely because I said, writers have a mission to convey something. The message is as important. And the reader is very important. Reader may be even imaginary. You may not have a reader in mind, but you may think that tomorrow somebody would read my writings and get the message, etc., etc. Once again, I want to debunk those who say, मैं तो जी किसी के लिए नहीं लिखता, मैं तो अपने लिए लिखता हूँ. This is again another post-truth. Let me try and give you two recent examples of literature. In 2007, two interesting novels were published. One by M.G. Vasanji. The book was called The Assassin's Song, and the other was A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, as you know. If you read these texts, you would know so much about the society that is described therein. And there is a definite message that these writers want to convey about that society. The next thing that I want to say is all literature, all creative literature is about people, human beings. Even when the subject is not exactly a human being, the basic subject is humans. You remember George Orwell's The Animal Farm? Is it about pigs? It is about humans. Do you remember that beautiful text that I read when I was young? A text called Jonathan Swift Seagull. Is it about a seagull chick learning to fly? No, it is about humans. And what about humans? What does a piece of literature tell you? It tells you about, all literature is about the basic needs: shelter, food, and housing, or things relating to ordinary life, plus emotions, feelings of love, feelings of jealousy. It is about tensions. It is about celebrations. It is about tears. It is about smiles. It is about joys. It's about fears. All literature is about that. The rigmarole, the superficial structure may be anything, but this is what lies at the bottom of all literary activities. Humans and these things. As I said, it is about physical needs, food, clothing, shelter, and feelings, something like love, affection, anger, jealousy, etc., etc. I used a term, this is the social function of literature. I used another expression that a piece of literature is a societal document. By societal document, I mean in its creation, the society participates. This is what I call, this is where I call a piece of literary writing is like Panchayati Shatranj, collective chess. What is this Panchayati Shatranj? You might have seen sometimes in gullies and mohallas, two people are playing chess. They are sitting on a charpai or on two tables in the street, and they have a chessboard and chessmen placed on them. The two are playing, and 7, 8, 10 people are standing around them and watching. Suddenly, one of them picks up a piece, let's say rook, and is about to place in a square when somebody holds his hand. Abhe ruk ja, mar jayega. He thinks that this is a wrong move. Somebody else says, nahi, nahi, chalne de, theek hai. You know, nominally 2 people are playing, but actually all the 10 around them are playing. A creative piece of writing is exactly like that. Although a book may have the name of one particular person on the title, written by so-and-so, so-and-so, actually the whole society has participated. Take some examples. When Girish Karnad wrote his Tughlaq, Did he not research about Tughlaq? Did he not go to the books of history and derive his sources from there? As students of English literature, we know Shakespeare drew so much from Holinshed's Chronicles, didn't we? Krishna Sopti, from whom I drew a lot of affection, once told me, Harish, when I was writing my novel, maybe you have read it, it's a very good novel called Dilo Danish. She said, for months I sat in the Harding Library in Daryaganj to research about Delhi of 19th century, what kind of life, what kind of language, what kind of attire, even what kind of sweets people ate and so on. I referred to Vasanji a little while ago. This novel, The Assassin's Song, which incidentally I translated for Yatra and Penguin as Katil Ka Geet. When he was researching for this novel, I remember Moise Vasanji and I spent a week going through various streets and places in Ahmedabad because he was researching and absorbing. And many of these appeared later in the fictional form in his book. Do you think when Bhishma Sani wrote Tamas, he, besides drawing as a refugee from his own experience, he did not research on what the partition atrocities were and so on and so forth? What I'm trying to say is, whole society in some way contributes to the creation of a text. You and I are very fond of terms like, intertextuality. What is intertextuality? Nothing but quoting another text. Doesn't the intertextuality contribute to the text that you are writing? T.S. Eliot and many other writers, when they write a poem, they write an epigraph before the poem starts, quoting someone else. I remember, I think in one of his poems, I may be wrong, I think Gerontian, he suddenly quotes Edward Marlowe's Jew of Malta, "Thou hast committed fornication, but that was in another country, and besides the wench is dead." Don't you think this has any bearing on the poem that you are about to read below that epigraph? Intertextuality is that. Nothing but the society of other writers contributing to it. So, let me say this, that there is a close relationship between the society and the creator of literature. And this gets reflected in a manner in the message that the writer wants to give. And that message is actually nothing but his or her worldview. Call it what people consider as a dirty term, call it his ideological stance or his or her ideology. Every piece of literature has these three essential components. So all literature has an ideological stance, has a worldview. This is built into the DNA of all writings. How did this DNA come about in writing? Thereby hangs a tale, and I want to tell you a small story. I'm nothing but a storyteller, you know. You can draw your own inferences. Try and imagine the most primitive society when humans had just become humans, emerged from the jungle. Imagine a group of people whose sustenance, whose end all and be all of living was just to procure food, consume it, and live for the next day. That's what humans had the objective at that point of time, to survive. Imagine a group of people who were hunters and who hunted animals and then consumed it. That was their objective. Every day a few people were assigned the duty to go and hunt and bring the kill, convert it into food. Okay. One day, the people who were assigned the duty did not come in time. People were hungry, people were getting agitated, but the hunters did not come and they didn't bring the kill of food. Finally, when they came, they discovered that people were hungry and anxious and angry. They tried to explain that that day the hunt was not easy to come by and they had to try and really make an extra effort, go farther, and the animal was not a docile animal. It tried to attack them, so they had to save themselves, etc. They make a big story. Anyways, people prepared the food, ate them, but before they started distributing the food, someone from those who had gone for hunting says, "Look, I worked the hardest. I faced the animal. I must have a larger share." Before that, everybody got equal share, but that day he or she insisted. And so since he was strong, he got away with it and got a larger share. The result was that one of the persons got less share, went half hungry. Fine. Next day, when the food was done like that and they were sitting around, that person who had got less food said, "I have a song. I've made a song. Will you listen to it?" And then he recited that song wherein he talked about how he went hungry because he did not get his fair share of the food. Okay. Next day, after they were sitting after the food, another fellow says, "I have also a song." And this was the fellow who had got the better share. And he described why he needed bigger share of the food, etc., etc. These were the earliest examples, friends, of literary creation. And worldview, ideology got injected into that point of time. That is what we call as class literature. Since humans have been unequal since then, all literature reflects that inequality. It has been a case of class being injected into the DNA. That class may be women, that class may be Dalit, that class may be minorities, that class may be rich people. All literature is class literature, remember. Because this is how literature reflects the reality of devolution of power to various sections of the society. That is why we have Dalit literature, which has one point of view, women's writing, which have another point of view. You have black writings. You have Anchalik Upanyas, people from the margins or hill and so on writing, because they all think that they have a certain point of view on devolution of power. This is what literature reflects. But more importantly, writers have a duty towards these sections of the society. That is why they write. You remember when women writing came about first, it was said the very fact of a woman taking a pen and putting it to paper was a political act. Because, that was the first step of empowering herself or women. And that is the relationship that writers have with society, the commitment they make. And that commitment in the age of post-truth, friends, has become more important. Because, as Rashmiji also said, writers try and discover truth. And in the age of post-truth, that discovery has become important. You have the age of fake news. पता ही नहीं चलता है कौन सच बोल रहा है, कौन नहीं, और क्या सच है. Writers have an additional duty of taking up the cudgels once again and discovering that. I want to end this by reading to you a poem. The poem is in Punjabi, but I have made an impromptu English translation of it. And this is by a famous Punjabi writer, poet called Pash. And Pash was a writer who was killed by the terrorists in Punjab in the 90s. He belonged to that category of writers whom we call as revolutionaries, who not only write, but who are activists and who don't mind laying down their lives for this. You have examples of another poet from Punjabi, Ravi, who was killed. You have the example of famous Kensaro Viva from Nigeria, who was hanged by Sani Abacha, that dictator. You have the examples of Gugiwa Thiong'o, who was put into isolation prison for 1 year for writing a novel like Petals of Blood, and so many others. Actually, coincidentally, the title of this poem by Pash is Pratibadhata. Pratibadhata is commitment. So the title itself is commitment. Let me see if I can find it, otherwise some other time. Yes, I have. We want not anything of the make-believe sort, like there are swellings on our biceps, like there are whiplashes printed on the backs of slaves, like there is our future scarred and constricted, gasping for breath between the pages of promissory notes. We want equality or something like that. We want it for real, for true, something like the sun, the wind, and the clouds that live around us in fields and hearths. We want for real to see us around regimes, trust, joy. Oh, cruel people, we want to see all that for true, for real. We want not anything of the sort, like there is evidence of touts in cases relating to liquor, like there is honesty of the patwari, like there are oaths of the middlemen. We want for real, for true, like there are grains of sand in jaggery, like there is nicotine in hookahs, like there is cream on the lips of the beloved in moments of union. We want not to read books hanging from the baton ends of policemen. We want not to sing songs of skill under threats of military jackboots. We want to touch for real, for true, with our caressed fingertips, the music resonating over trees, to lick salt from the smoke of tear gas shells, to taste our own blood in one's own tongue cannot be fun for anyone. But we want not anything of that sort. We want for real, for true, life, socialism, or something like that. Before I thank you for your patience, I want to say a word about the title. You know, Maharana Pratap and not Akbar won the battle of Haldighati. You and I know was pronounced by a public political figure to be true. He said Maharana Pratap won it and not Akbar, which you and I know is an extreme example of post-truth because the facts point to the contrary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for such a persuasive and captivating deliberation. And as you said, literature is an expression which may be real or imaginary, and at times hybrid. Supporting this, I remember a few lines I read somewhere that your emotions don't tell you the truth, they tell you what you believe. Your beliefs don't tell you the truth, they tell you your best guess at the reality. To release belief and seek real knowing. Thank you, sir, for wonderfully conceptualizing the idea and basic theme of the seminar. Words would never be enough to express our deep sense of gratitude to you. Thank you again, sir.
Grateful. It's a two-way interaction. I always learn something when I interact with young people and also my senior colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It is truly a momentous and a rare occasion today as we are doubly honored by the presence of our dear teacher, our ma'am, our constant motivator, and one of a kind scholar, Madam Professor Rajul Bhargav, former head Department of English, University of Rajasthan, former head Department of English, Central University of Haryana, has an MA in English and an MA in Applied Linguistics from the University of Rochester, USA, and a PhD in Sociology of Literature. She has been the recipient of the New York State Scholarship, the Charles Walcott Trust Scholarship, and the Ray Tung Grant and other bursaries. She has 42 years of teaching and research experience in both linguistics and literature, having supervised over 70 PhD and MPhil dissertations in both the disciplines. Her publications include more than 64 papers in national and international journals and books, and she herself is the author of 10 books. She has delivered keynote addresses and plenaries in the seminars and conferences both in India and abroad. She has successfully completed two major and two minor UGC research projects during her tenure. She has been a long-standing member of TESOL, IATFL, LTI, ANUPI, ASRC, the Steinbeck Society of America, British Council and American Center, and has actively contributed to these forums. She was a founder secretary of MELIS India in 1998 and Secretary Bharati Vidya Bhavan Jaipur. She has been in academic positions on many boards of studies and management in various universities across the country and helped to plan and institute their vision documents, curricula, and syllabuses, as well as prepare study materials. Professor Bhargav has organized many orientation and refresher courses in the Rajasthan University and delivered talks and conducted workshops at other and different states. She has served in various administrative capacities in various institutions. She is the founder and editor of Voices and brings out a biannual journal and organizes roundtables under its aegis. Professor Bhargav's area of specialization include, besides linguistics and language studies, narratology, especially women's narrativity, critical theory, and post-theory inventions and translation studies. A very warm welcome, ma'am. May I request madam for her closing remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Preeti. Good afternoon, Harishji. How can I close when you have opened so many doors, sir? The only thing we can say is that, let's put it this way, Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. From truth to consciousness to beauty. And after beauty, what? Transformed utterly, a terrible beauty is born, said Yeats. And that is what we are all envisaging today, as you truly pointed out. In truth, we were, as a matter of fact, we sang songs of our innocence. We believed in facts. We believed in logic. Seeing was believing. Experiencing was coming to a proven, experimentally proven, evidenced act. We believed in the rule of law, sir. We were the is people. From there, we have traveled and we have been transformed. Being from the applied linguistics, we can say that this has been a transformational, generative thing. We have, as we have regenerated ourselves into these post-human beings, we have transformed ourselves. Now we do not believe in facts, but in factlets. We believe in what is called factoids, as Norman Mailer put it. We do not swear by the encyclopedia. We get the Wikipedia. We do not believe in the mathematical equations of 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, sir. There is no objectivity left. We are all now opinionated people. We are plagued by spandrels, so to say, epiphenomena, practical contingencies. That is exactly what we all have been led into believing. The values that Nietzsche talked about have been metamorphoses. The Heideggerian, if I say Dasein, the being of the world is what truth is, post-truth is now. We are into, let me put it in my, as I have read somewhere, we are into what is called the regime of myths. The grand narratives have been broken up by us smaller people into our small narratives. Narratives that do not tell the truth, the one and only truth. मैं जो कुछ भी कहूँगा सच के अलावा कुछ नहीं कहूँगा, पर कितने सच हैं जमाने में. So every small true narrative, as you have rightly said, is a post-truth. We are based on intentions. We are working by perceptions. We go by gut feelings, and that is what, to me, is the post-truth. How far that is from the beginning truth, we do not know. But there have been wounds. ये जो हमने एक पटीना कर दिया है उसको पोस्ट ट्रूथ करके, मतलब ट्रूथ के संग पोस्ट लगा दिया है. दिस इज जस्ट अ पटीना. ये एक ग्लॉस ओवर है, बिकॉज अंडरलाइंग में डिकंस्ट्रक्ट हम करें तो ये जो अपोरिया है ये पता नहीं कहाँ चला गया है. दैट वी कैन नॉट ग्रैपल टू फाइंड इट एट ऑल. जो 4 H थे, हमारे 3 H थे, हेगल थे, हाइडेगर थे, हसरल थे, जो phenomenology की बात करते थे, all that has now evaporated. We are living in a world of an unguided tour. Absolutely unguided. हमारा कोई tour guide अब नहीं रहा. If we say we are the tour guides, that will be short of, taking the onus of truth. तो truth तो रहा ही कहाँ इस post truth में. मेरे ख्याल से we are past the last post. अब ये post जो है पता नहीं कहाँ post रहेगा भी कि नहीं रहेगा. तो आजकल के जमाने में truthiness हो गई है. इसको which is based on, as I said, Stephen Colbert का कहना है कि truthiness रह गई है, virtue नहीं रह गई है, veritasness रह गई है. तो ये चीजें जो हैं ये कहाँ ले जाएंगी. आपने बहुत अच्छी तरीके से इसको ओपन अप किया है और ये मैं कुछ क्लोज नहीं कर रही हूँ. I am trying to, see where we can go with all that you have pointed out, and I think the seminar would be based on these. ये जो terrible beauty that is going to be born after transformation of truth to post-truth, let us see where it will take us. Thank you and all the best for the seminar. Thank you, Harish sir, for that very, very beautiful, if I can put it, क्योंकि आपने innocence की बात करी है, आपने literature की बात करी है, तो literature मेरे लिए अभी भी beautiful है, but where it takes us is another story. So we will end with your story, sir, and begin again the seminar from that vantage point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for concluding. Live your truth, express your love, share your enthusiasm. Take action towards your dreams. Walk your talk, dance and sing to your music. Embrace your blessings, make today worth remembering. Indeed, today is the day we are going to embrace our memories with. Hereby I request Dr. S. R. Shaw, Vice President LTI, Rajasthan Chapter, to propose a vote of thanks. But before that, let me take the privilege of introducing ma'am. Dr. S. R. Shaw, Associate Professor, is presently posted in Government College, Tonk. She has over 30 years of teaching experience and has been actively into teaching, learning, and research. She has presented papers in several national and international conferences, both in India and abroad. Her areas of interest include comparative literature, Indian writing in English, film studies, cultural studies, and language studies. Her articles have been published in reputed volumes and journals. Ma'am has been actively working with LTI Rajasthan chapter to take it to heights. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Preeti. A very good day to our most esteemed speakers, guests, worthy teaching community and participants. On behalf of LTI, I extend my sincere thanks to KMM management It is always a pleasure for LTI to collaborate with KMM under the guidance of Madam Professor Rashmi Chaturvedi, who is indeed a torchbearer to her institution as well as to the extended teaching fraternity in all, especially to our LTI Jaipur chapter. We expect her ready consent in every venture that we come forward with, and are never disappointed. And Professor Dr. Seema Agarwal and a team of dedicated, enthusiastic team has always been a pleasure to work with. Our own Preeti, of course, is no exception. And I offer my sincere thanks to our keynote speaker, Professor Harish Narang, who has shared his valuable insights, which will go a long way to make this seminar a huge success. And it will be indeed a very good learning experience. And of course, I offer my sincere thanks to Madam Rajul Bhargav, who did such a wonderful summing up through her address, bringing in the Satyam Shivam Sundaram concept. I thank my LTI office bearers, Sanjay Arora, the LTI president, Dr. Bandana Chakravarti, our chapter president, our secretary Shaila, and last but not the least, Preeti, who has always come forward with the idea of collaborating on behalf of an institution with LTI. And of course, I should not leave out the technical staff who has been of great support today. Although in our offline ventures, it has been the large entire staff who has collaborated with us in a big way, whether it's providing infrastructure, whether it's providing catering, or whether it's providing other resources. Thank you so much. Thank you all, and wish we have a very valuable learning experience over the next 2 days. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And with this vibrant and pulsating start of the event, we come to the onset of 2-day international seminar on post-truth, actual versus alternate reality. Once again, on behalf of everyone present here, I thank all our esteemed guests for being with us on this auspicious occasion. Your blessings are solicited. And I request everyone to please stay on and turn on their camera so that I can take few clicks. Though I have taken some candid also, but then now a formal picture. Thank you. So here we go on the count of 3. Here we go. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
We have technical sessions ahead and the panel discussion. You all are invited to join them. Thank you so much.
Done.
सुरेश सर नमस्ते. कैसे हैं सर?